Welcome to the Spitzen-Körper Thelema. We hold in this archive a text that was never meant to circulate beyond a closed circle. The manuscript before us, The Magical Ritual of the Sanctum Rinum, was written by Éliphas Lévi, born Alphonse Louis Constant in 1810, directly on to interleaved pages of Trithemius's Renaissance masterwork De Septem Secundis. It sat in private hands for decades. When it finally reached print in 1896, 4 years after Levi's death, the editor, working from Levi's own handwriting, faced a problem that still troubles us. Levi had encoded his teachings. The tarot correspondences he gives here are deliberately incomplete. The keys, he knew, belonged only to those prepared to receive them. We are reading esoteric instruction designed to withhold as much as it reveals. This manuscript emerges from a precise historical juncture. The 1860s Paris of the Second Empire, when Levi had already published his monumental Dogme Trichil de l'Haute Magie, the work that would reshape Western occultism for the next century and a half. But where that published work addressed to educated readership, this Sanctum Rinum, the Holy Kingdom, was something else entirely, a liturgical manual, a ritual system mapped onto the 22 tarot trumps, designed to train the operator's will through graduated initiatory stages. It belongs to the current of French Hermetic revival that moves from Claude Saint Martin through Joseph de Maistre and into Levi himself. A school that insists magic is not manipulation of external forces but the perfection of the operator's own faculties. The text opens with the figure of the magician and moves through the archetypal sequence, each card a station of knowledge, each demanding a different discipline of consciousness. What matters about Levi now is this: he was the first Western esotericist to systematically argue that magic works through speech, acts through the formulation of desire into words and thence into action. He collapsed the false boundary between prayer and magic, between religious practice and occult work. Everything in this system depends on 3 things working in concert. Here is the opening passage, beginning with the first trump. The magician, listen to the words of Solomon which he spake to his son Rehoboam, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, but the end of wisdom is the knowledge and love of him who is the source of all good, and the supreme reason, whence all things do proceed. Adonai had passed an eternity in heaven, and then created man, so a time on earth is given to man to comprehend Adonai. In other words, the knowledge which man attains concerning the Supreme Being springs from the faculties which have been bestowed upon him at his creation, in order that he might in his turn formulate an image of the Being who has sent him into this world. By intelligence man conceives the ideal of God, and by will he should turn to good works. But human will, when without works, is dead, or at any rate is only a vague desire. The same is true of a thought not expressed in language. It is not a word, but only a dream of the intelligence. An imagination is not a realized thing, it is only a promised something, while an act is a reality. For the same reason there is no piety without prayer, and no religion without worship. Words are the formal and social reality of ideals, and ceremonies are religion put into practice. There is no real faith unless it shows itself by actions prompted by faith. A formulated expression in words, confirmed by actions, demonstrates the 2 powers of a human soul. To work it is necessary to will, and to will it is necessary to formulate the desire. Actions imply ideas even if the ideals are not themselves translated into acts. Thought is the life of intelligence. Words show the creative force of thought, while actions are the last effort of words, and the desirable couplement of words. Words have been spoken, thought has been translated into action. By the act of creating, speech has taken place. A word is the requisite formula of a thought, an act is an exhibition of will. This is why prayer is a necessity, and may obtain all that it asks. A prayer is a perfected act of the will. It is a link connecting human words with the divine will. All ceremonies, consecrations, ablutions, and sacrifices are prayers in action, and are symbolic formulas, and they are the most potent prayers because they are translations of word into action, showing willpower and persistence, seeing that they require more constrained attention than silent prayer, or prayer expressed in words, and so they constitute real work, and such work demands a man's whole energy. Now comes the second trump, the priestess. Depth is equal to height, darkness is contrasted with light, matter is but the garment of the spirit. That which is below is like that which is above. The breath of God is borne along over the waters, and the waters remain aloft carried on by the breath of God. That which we call the breath of God is the life essence spread over the worlds, it is that warm luminous fluid which gives a soul to the planets. The common reservoir of progressive animal life, the universal basis of the sympathies between bodies, and the medium of love between souls, it is the vehicle of the will, and common basis for all the varied modifications of the creative word. The breath of the mouth of God leads to the corresponding human breath. God said, "Let us make man," and man answers, "Let us make to ourselves a god." When God made creation manifest as a temple, He illumined the planets as light-bearers. He decorated the earth with flowers as an altar. He gave mysterious properties to metals and plants, and He drew with His finger circles, triangles, and the cross, as eternal particles, traced in living fire upon the immense vault of the skies. The Magus should imitate his God upon this earth, his dwelling, know, will, and act. These are the three essentials for sacerdotal and royal high magic. Matter and form are instruments placed in the power of the Magus. His acts should be dependent on the word, and so shall none of his deeds be lost, and his teachings shall be preserved. You then who desire to understand the mysteries of this science and to perform marvels, consider and tremble lest you have as yet failed to attain to knowledge and wisdom, for if so, you stand on the brink of an abyss. Stop, ere it is too late. But if you have secured the lamp and wand of initiation, if you are cognizant of the secrets of the nine, if you never speak of God without the light which proceeds from Him, if you have received the mystical baptism of the four elements, if you have prayed upon the 7 mountains, if you know the mode of motion of the double sphinx chariot, if you have grasped the dogma of why Osiris was a black god, if you are free, if you are a king, if you are in truth a priest in the Temple of Solomon, act without fear, and speak, for your words will be all-powerful in the spiritual kingdom, and the breath of God will follow the utterances of your mouth, and the powers of the heavens and of the earth will be obedient unto you. What Levi has constructed here is a doctrine of magical efficacy that hinges on a single claim: words are not labels for things, they are instruments of will. This is not metaphor. When he writes that thought is the life of intelligence, words show the creative force of thought, he means that the act of formulating desire into language is itself a creative act. It is the bridge between the merely imagined and the actually manifest. A wish remains inert, a vague desire until it becomes a word. And a word remains impotent until it becomes an act. This is why prayer is not optional for the Magus. Prayer is the perfection of will expression, ritual is prayer embodied in the body's own motions. Notice the Hermetic axiom that appears in the second passage: that which is below is like that which is above. Levi is not invoking this as poetry. He is grounding his entire system in a precise claim about correspondence. The human operator mirrors divine creative action. God spoke creation into being. Man, as the image of God, possesses the same faculty, but it remains dormant until disciplined through initiation. The magician card, then, is not a figure of supernatural power wielded from outside. It is the human being who has learned to align his three faculties, knowledge, will, and action, with the creative principle itself. He speaks, and the cosmos listens, because his speech has become transparent to divine speech. This seeded everything that came after. The Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn, which formalized Levi's scattered teachings into a complete system of grades and correspondences, built its entire architecture on this triadic formula. Modern chaos magic, for all its aesthetic distance from Levi, still rests on the assumption that belief plus intention plus speech act equals change in consciousness and circumstance. Even the therapeutic language of affirmation and visualization in contemporary esotericism traces back to this text, the insistence that reality is malleable to the degree that the operator's will is coherent and articulated. Levi made magic a discipline of speech and consciousness rather than a craft of external manipulation. That shift was the pivot upon which modern Western esotericism turned. Next, Purpose, the Tarot of the Bohemians. The Spitzen-Körper Thelema. If this archive serves you, support it on Patreon. Link in the description.